I dwell in hell, but it's a hell that I can grip. I tried to grip my family, but I slipped. To escape from the pain in an existence mundane, I got a 9, a sign, a set, and now I got a name. Read my writing on the wall. No one's here to catch me when I fall. Death is on my side. Suicide.
There you have it, the fruit of a culture of death, the fruit of a body full of cancer that stinks. This is Father David Hewko in St. Louis, Missouri, and here with me tonight is Father Ken Novak.
Oh, Father.
He comes from Kansas City all the way to help us out tonight. And as you heard in the first tape, Dr. Gabriel DeErausquin.
I'm a local. Good evening, Father.
Right from St. Louis. Well, we're going to study in this piece, as you just heard in the introduction, this music you just heard, it teaches a doctrine. It has values. It has fruits. And it's built on a core, on a rock. If we could call it a rock, our Lord would call it sand. And this is the cultus, we could say, because every culture is built on the cultus, which means worship. And the fruits of this cult produces the stink and the rot of this kind of music, and we could say even this modern architecture, this modern kind of literature, this modern art, and the whole tissue of disorder and the rot that comes from this kind of cult. What is this cult? Father Novak.
The cult goes back to the defiance of Adam and Eve, of God in the Garden of Eden. Its original sin. It's pride. It's pride. And our pride is when we separate ourselves from God. And when we separate ourselves from God, we replace God with ourselves, make ourselves gods. And having done that, we have our own laws, our own thoughts, and unhinged from objectivity. It means we, in the end, become antisocial to the point where you have these anthems now of the new cult, which is this anthem of total selfishness, even to the point of killing oneself.
That's the trademark of Satanism.
Well, he's a murderer. He's a murderer and a father of lies.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting to make that connection between worship or cult and culture. Both, in fact, come from the same Latin word. And I think it's interesting to study the relationship of the word, because for the Latin, for the Romans, these two words were intimately related, not only as words, but also in fact, because cult for them, or the verb cultivare, was both the act of working the land and making it bear fruit, in particular, right?
Agriculture, right?
For example, in particular, the bearing of the fruit of the wheat, the bread, and the fruit of the grape.
The crop, the harvest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wine. And both bread and wine are the essence of the offering, the original offering of Noah first. He offers the wine after the flood, and also the offer of his son Sem, who offers the bread. And those are, of course, the prefiguration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass. But even without getting into the biblical description of these issues, the Latin word associated the cult of the land, or the cultivation, the work of the land, with the worship of the ancestors, which were buried on that land, or in that land rather. For them, the fatherland, their country, was a sacred place because it held the rests of their forefathers for their eternal rest. So in working that sacred land, they joined in the worship of eternal Rome. Now, if for the Roman there was a relationship between worship and culture, and the work, and that was what we now call culture. For these people, there is a relationship too, and the question is then, what are they worshipping?
Yeah, and it's obviously the worship now of hedonism, pleasure without restraints, and even Satan himself at the core.
Well, if you compare it to a field, Doctor, you have to say that the artists that we just heard at the beginning of the tape, they're not just a little garden plot somewhere. These are mainline artists now. This is the field. That's the Rolling Stones back in the early 70s with I Get No Satisfaction. Then Alanis Morissette, the baptized Catholic woman who is now #1. And then lastly we heard Rage Against the Machine, a group that's now become very mainline, Father Hewko tells me.
Yeah, well, the locals down the street, that's their favorite. In fact, the CD was borrowed from one of the thugs. As a remedy to this, our own, you listeners, you young men and you young ladies in high school and college and moving on, you're often told, you got to listen. What I'm often asked myself, and I'm sure you would too, our Father, that what do we listen to, Father? There's only rock and roll, and then you tell us, our parents tell us, you priests tell us, we should listen to classical music. Yeah. And we should, but classical music, we have to remember, was also the music of the high class in the Enlightenment period, the 1800s, rather the Endarkment period. But I mean, it has its value, it has its beauty, but often we're asked, Father, is this all we have to listen to? And
well, you just can't give them a piece of Bach or Mozart right off the bat. There's no doubt about that. Doctor?
Well, actually, not only you can't just play it right off the bat or sing it, but moreover, these pieces were not meant to be played or sang along spontaneously. They were music extremely elaborate for people with an equally elaborate taste. In fact, there is a funny story. There are 6 famous concerts by Bach, the Brandenburg concerts, which he, in fact, I think never played because they were meant as a letter of presentation that he wrote to a prince he intended to, to convince to hire him. And I don't think he ever played or directed these pieces during his lifetime. So the classic music, or classical music as we know it, was an enterprise of very few people, very highly cultivated in very special occasions. They played it when they were in special meetings as background music, or they would play it at special dinners or for occasions of celebration, like crownings or fireworks or very special circumstances like that. So it wasn't music intended or written for the everyday listening or playing or...
But a music there was always present is what we call folk music. And this is no doubt a solution for us in this dilemma. There is music, it's passed down to us, and I think we should just look at it from the broad back standoff view. What was the music of Catholic countries? The folk music of Catholic countries. And if we study it, if we look at it, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to take you through a few pieces of music from one of the major Catholic countries of Europe and South America. These pieces were written by the peasants on feast days. They gathered together after the hard days of work, working on the land, and they would have a festival, dancing, singing, and markedly, well, let's leave it to you, the listeners. What do you detect? What is the main thread in all these pieces of music? So the first piece is going to be, well, we'll let you guess.
Well, it sounds like the Blessed Irish there are singing for us, huh? Playing for us.
Yeah. It's the music from Ireland.
Ireland, yes. Well, Irish, always faithful, they say. Well, there's the common music. There's the common Catholic music of the common people. What you had heard at the opening of the tape was the common music now of a different kind of a people that has lost the faith, that maybe never had the faith in a country that never had the faith. Notice that, well, Father, you're asking, it's joyful.
Yeah.
That's one of the fruits of the Catholic culture. It's joyful. There's a happiness there, and happiness is the power to do what's right, and then the desire to do right things. And happy people can write this kind of music and sing this kind of music.
And like St. Thomas Aquinas says in the Summa very clearly, joy is a fruit of charity, of sanctifying grace.
Along with peace and mercy, too, yes.
And so joy in music will be the fruit of a Catholic civilization, of a people that hold Christ as King of their nation and of their hearts.
But I don't think it's fair, Father. You know, after all, the Irish musicians were blessed by St. Patrick and given a special grace, so that whenever a fiddler...
What do you know?
Well, whenever a fiddler plays, actually there is a real blessing on his will. An Irish fiddler would play, everybody would be joyful and tap and dance. So I don't think it's fair to say that the Irish are representative. They are special, aren't they?
I guess, but we've got others here. There's others that would debate the question.
Maybe a little more special. That's the music from my own ancestors, the Hewkos from Ukraine. My grandma and grandpa came from Ukraine. They settled up in Alberta. And this music is, again, rooted in the fields, rooted in the Catholic country. Just give an ear to it and notice, again, the trademark of manly joy.
It's a hard day in the field there for those fellows. I think they're just singing for their supper. They want to eat real bad.
Well, of course, Ukraine they bled for their food too. Stalin, is not written in the history books, Stalin blocked the borders off of Ukraine. And in 1932, over 17 million were starved to death in Ukraine.
But yet not starved to the faith.
No, they kept it, and they still do. So, we're going to move right on to the next example.
I grant your point, Father.
The next example of good folk music, rooted in men and women who love God, who love their country, love their homeland, and express it in the joy of music and singing and dancing. This is a country that was very early brought to the light of the Catholic faith by even St. Paul himself, the country of Greece. Some call it hockey music.
Oh, you do, Father. All right. Get the chant going there.
Yeah, well, you see again, like you mentioned already, Father, the trademark again of joy in this music. Again, a very Catholic element. In the next piece you're going to hear, well, Doctor, you better explain this one. This is your homeland.
Let it explain itself.
amanecida como un querer, sueño del alma, que a veces muere sin florecer. Sueño del alma, que a veces muere sin florecer. Samba.
This actually it's an interesting song because if you ask me what the lyrics say, they are sad. In fact, this guy is talking about how his love left him.
Well, sad, yes. But sad, is it all without hope?
Well, no. Actually, it's interesting too that the name of the song is "Song of My Hope" or "Samba of My Hope." The guy writes a beautiful song to the love that left, but asking his star to take the song to her with the hope that she'll be back and that the star will sing the song to her and convince her to come back. It's a rather beautiful lyric.
That's it. For the Catholic, there's hope even in sorrow.
Yeah,
There's another one.
There's many Ukrainian songs about the wars and people, relatives dying, but the sadness and the sadness, just call it that, in the folk music, in the Catholic countries is always filled with the element of hope. It's not
always.
It won't be the case, and we're going to see soon in pagan music.
Yeah, even in our Requiem Mass, we're remembering that we're not like others who have no hope.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, if you just think for a moment on the lyrics of the song by whatever the machine was.
Rage the Machine or Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Okay, that. Whatever the hope is that ends up in suicide.
Yeah, same with Pink Floyd. This next piece we're going to hear, continuing on, just some brief examples of folk music. We're going to France here, and she's called the oldest daughter of the church.
We don't have translator for this one, fine.
Someone's going to have to write in. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The oldest daughter you called France. It's the 1500th anniversary of her conversion with the baptism of Clovis this year.
Yeah, poor France. Poor France. She used to have the faith. I think Belloc, one of his great sayings is, Europe is the faith and the faith is Europe. And I think now you could say that in past tense. But this is why it's important for you young men, young ladies, to hear this, to see what these Catholic countries did have and did produce. And this country has never known Catholicism. The next piece you're going to hear is from the land of the Scots, Scotland.
At the song of a tune like this, the Scots raced against Henry VIII first and Elizabeth I. The bloodthirsty afterwards. They were the first ones to race against it.
Against Protestantism. Yeah, and there's a famous 45-minute war that took place in the 1700s, where the last of the Scottish Highland people fought with their swords against the Protestants who had the artillery. And they had to flee to what's called now Nova Scotia, New Scotland. We're going to take a long jump across the ocean to a country that was converted thanks to Our Lady of Guadalupe and to be sainted, hopefully, Christopher Columbus, the land of Mexico and the Cristeros.
De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones.
Who doesn't know that tune? In fact, talking about joy, the lyrics of that song say, particularly, sing, don't cry, because singing, your heart will be joyful.
And St. Augustine, you know his own words, a lover chants. And a Catholic is a heart and a soul full of love, firstly for God and his neighbor, for the love of God. Well, we're going to go on and see this joy spread out also in the country, the music of Germany.
Germany, which is a special way of celebrating its joy.
With the Oktoberfest.
With the Oktoberfest, Father.
And a lot of dark stout.
Many dark stouts.
Here's the music from the land of Germany, unfortunately ripped apart by Protestantism.
Ja, auf dem Oktoberfest geht's immer süchtig zu, denn da spricht die
This is how they sing together when they have a view on.
Heute wollen wir lustig sein und vorne schwitzt sie aus. Und jede eure Zwiebelwurzel schickt mir keiner Hass. Denn am Ende siegt die Gemütlichkeit. Und das versöhnt die Leute, ja das versöhnt die Leute. Ja am Ende siegt die Gemütlichkeit. Dies ist, was uns so weiß. Ja das wünscht
You know, it's interesting that they say that in Germany, the guys who still sing this way and bounce and yell and do all those things when they are having a stout are the guys in the south, in the Bavaria, the Catholic Germans, not the Protestants.
Yeah, that's typical. But so what's the common thread all of you hear in this music? Well, Father Novak mentioned it already. It's the element of joy. And that joy, as our Lord said, no one can take from you. And who brought this joy firstly to these countries? It was always usually brought with the apostles, or in Americas with the French or the Spanish that converted these countries to the faith. So we're going to also take a look now at what happens in a country before they receive the Catholic faith. We're going to have a little taste of our own country before Catholicism actually took root. We know Catholicism was here before, 100 years before it was here.
But before we go away, let's listen to a little music from the land of the popes.
What land is that?
Italia. And now we get ready for the American music.
The American music, yeah, before Christendom.
Native American.
Too bad we didn't have Italian music before they received St. Peter, the Roman music. But here's an example of the Indian music, which brings with it the whole spirit worship, and you're going to see what is preeminent in this music.
it's certainly marked by
It's marked by a lot of hard days' work before that, sure.
I can't even say. The poor folk, you see how much one needs Christianity. But imagine what kind of singing we would have
Desperately needs.
without Christianity.
But notice the rhythmic drums, huh?
The rhythmic drums, there's the sensuality, is sort of guttural, very bass singing, and there's certainly no joy there. It's just fearful and
It's
dark and sad, and I shouldn't be laughing. I really.
It has an element of despair too.
But actually, another element which is quite interesting is that there's no true singing. There's mostly screaming or yelling, but no true singing.
And
Somewhat like rap music, I would say.
yeah, notice the connection between this pre-Christian music and the revival of this guttural bass rhythmic drumming with the modern music.
This is interesting, the next one, I think. You're going to have this Africa piece.
Notice, this is Japan.
Japan is next,
Africa
sorry.
will be after this. This is way across where St. Francis Xavier brought the faith, but before that, here's what the music they had.
Again, it's marked by a lot of doubt, I would say.
Maybe you could flip to another section, Doctor, and maybe give another example of Japanese music. We don't have the fortune cookies to go around here.
But if you notice any pauses, it's because we're eating sushi.
It's a real hard tune to hum.
Well, that's Japan. We're going to head on over to Africa, and we're going to hear a piece here of the functional music, rhythmic drums and functional music in connection with pagan rituals and orgies and etc. And it's tied in, as St. Paul says, the gods of the Gentiles are devils. And this is the fruit of such a culture. That's the Beatles before Christendom. So, what do you see marked in that music? Certainly the lack of joy and a lot of sorrow, a lot of darkness. And we're going to see later how this is revived in the modern rock and roll. So let's get down to our own home soil here, America. Rock music or folk music? Do we have folk music?
Not the kind of folk music, Father, that we heard earlier. That comes from a Catholic culture, because here in this country, unfortunately, we've not had that Catholic culture. But we do have, indirectly, maybe some vestiges of that Catholic culture. And so we have a certain folk music that comes from the land. At the best, we could speak of maybe the songs of the South, Dixie. We could talk about some of the country music. That is real songs of the land, not the hot country, perhaps, that's being played today. Cowboy music. And
Home on the Range.
Home on the Range, sure enough. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me.
It all echoes the European white tradition, which, of course, was rooted in Christendom.
Well, it comes from the European immigrants. Most notably, however, maybe, there's a real unique country music, or unique folk music from the blacks, from the Negroes. And their spirituals especially, which we have here and nowhere else.
And it's typical to America. They received, of course, Christendom in piecemeal. Unfortunately, they never received the full Catholic truth.
I think that's why their music is marked by a certain sadness and emotion. There seems to be still a longing for the full truth of Christ, which they've not received or haven't taken from us Catholics.
Well,
The music that is playing in the background, it's actually a song recopilated in Kentucky by an American folklorist, and it's originally a tune from Scotland, if I'm correct, or from the Old England, but it's a tune that came almost unmodified from the old continent and was sung traditionally by American people in rural Kentucky by this recopilator. And actually that kind of makes the point. Had not 300 or 400 years passed by, it would not be surprising to find an unmodified tune, let alone the lyrics. This song talks about the death of Queen Jane at the time of Henry VIII. It's almost 400 years since, over 400 years. And the Americans still sing it unmodified. And perhaps that makes the point about what the difference is between European folk, which continue to grow and evolve with the growth of the Catholic nations, and South American folk, for that matter, which fused with the Indian music and created a new healthy body. It fecundated the Indian lack of culture with a true cult of God, and from that is that what we now have, the folk music of the South came, and the regions even within South America can be clearly identified by the nature of the Indians that used to live there, in that the southern, more darker, more closer to Satan rituals are the ones that remained more obscure, dark in their folk music, and the more Catholic nations, the ones that turned more completely in their conversion, are the ones that have the most joyful, beautiful music.
It's interesting you bring that up, Doctor, because the Spaniards always mingled with the Indians, converted them, brought them to the sweet yoke of Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. However, the Protestants don't have the same trademark. Their trademark is one of literally genocide. When the Puritans and the capitalists moved in, they pushed the Indians either out or just simply killed them, which is typical to the Protestantized culture. It's going to be bearing a fruit of music, which is not really a Catholic folk music. And that's why we have, with rock and roll, in many of the modern pop songs, we don't have a real Catholic folk music here in America yet. And why? We're going to, just for three main points, and we're going to briefly look at them. Firstly, the similarity of the rock and roll to the pagan music, as you just heard, that rhythmic drumming, the revival of the absurd, the suicidal, the revolutionary attitude towards, firstly, God, towards authority, the fearfulness, the sadness, and now being post-Christian, blasphemous against God. You've heard of the rock group called the Jesus and Mary Connection. Now there's another one called the Jesus Lizard, and which are openly blasphemous.
Which you cannot say about the pre-Christian cultures. They were looking forward to Christ or didn't know Christ. Now we know that he's a fact 2,000 years ago, so that adds insult to injury with our rock music. With our music.
And another element, I think, too, is firstly, the similarity to pagan elements. Secondly, in America, you had that overwhelming Puritan influence, and also the philosophy of the 17 and 1800s, the so-called Enlightenment. And here, Catholics who might have come from Ireland and Poland and so forth, they were persecuted very severely. Remember, in Boston we saw the convent that was burned down
Right,
in Philadelphia, the church that was also burned
right,
down.
the Know-Nothing riots, right, the nativist riots, yes.
So the Puritans pushed down the Catholic celebrations of Christmas.
Tremendously so. The story is yet to be told in our history.
Festivals are also limited, and the drinking songs, of course, went all with that, because the Puritans, which is typical of Protestantism, puts a Band-Aid. It doesn't cure the problem by virtue, but by an artificial
Exactly it.
solution, by
That's exactly it.
prohibition of alcohol, of dancing, of singing, which actually leads to what we have now is an excess. In the American idea of a party, it's to get drunk, and dancing is lewd, and singing is debased.
Well, grace is built on nature, and it's in our nature to drink as we celebrate. It's in our nature to have our festivals. But the Puritan answer was to eliminate those, all right, to make them illegal, and prohibition of, for instance, alcohol. But there's no virtue in that. In fact, it's going to always come in through the back door, as it has, all right, as we're listening to. Well, the answer is to practice virtue, that is of temperance, for instance. And that's what the Catholic, the viewpoint on that is.
Yeah. I think the other element, too, is the capitalistic lifestyle.
No doubt, no doubt. Always changing,
Yeah. Always changing.
always progressing, and always bent on material success. Bigger and better and faster. And that leaves little or no time for leisure. In fact, we feel guilty if we take any time to enjoy ourselves singing the songs as we've heard here from the Catholic
It was
countries.
funny that one old farmer told me that he said they told us when the tractor would come out that the families, which before used to gather together and sing and talk, that with the tractor we'll have more time with each other to sing and visit, so forth. And he said when the tractor came along and all the advancements on the farm, eventually no one had time for anybody. And today, nobody has time even hardly to answer the phone.
No, the more we can do, the more we're expected to do.
Yeah, so it also is, we have the artificial replacing the natural, and especially the home singing, the home life, the basics of what was natural and was baptized in Catholic countries.
As a matter of fact, Father, I think that coming back to the issue of cult and worship associated with culture, the American work ethic, so-called, that you are so well describing, is in fact an attitude of a religious type. It's linked to the Calvinist belief that material success
Yeah.
is a mark of God's election. It's a mark of being saved. And the opposite is also true, is the debasing of poverty. Whereas in the Middle Ages and into the Spanish colonies, being poor was just a condition in life. And you could be as joyful being poor, if not more, in fact, because it's easier for a poor to get to heaven than it is for a rich man or for a wealthy person. It was considered just another accident of life.
Yeah.
In fact, for the Americans, by contrast, in particular for the Easterners, for the Calvinists, it's a mark of damnation,
Yeah.
and so looked down upon and forced away from the view of society.
And we are far from that Calvinist despair. A Catholic ought to be the most happy man on earth. And yet, in conclusion here, Catholic American folk music has yet to be written.
Be always ready to give a reason for the joy that is in you.
That's it. St. Peter.
And that's a joy that every Catholic ought to have, living in the state of grace. And this joy is the fruit of a Catholic culture. Catholic American folk music has yet to be written. Don't be overawed by all these complexities. Father, you were mentioning the CDs here and everything. And it's really not the real thing. It's in you got to learn the instruments, write the songs. In fact, Jason Wenschel is going to the seminary, one of your sheep, Father.
Yeah,
He
he's
wrote a song called
Black Robe, where are you now? Black Robe, we need you now. He's not just listening to the music, he's writing it.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
you youngsters have to do
That's
too.
what we need to be done. And for festival days, feast days of the saints of the church, evening gatherings.
Spontaneity.
Yeah, not in the tuxedo formal
No.
sense, not in the party American sense with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but in the singing of a heart living in a state of grace, a simple joy with one's friends, with one's family. This has to be restored.
Father, how about we learn the harmonica? All right.
I recommend to you, as a final word, Belloq's book, all his books, and also G.K. Chesterton as well. They dive deep into these problems. And if you want these tapes still coming to you, we need your prayers firstly. We need some feedback. What you think of these tapes, especially from you men. The women are all responding and they love it. We need to hear some more
Save your
feedback.
pennies, send them to Father Hewko.
And we need some money to put these out.
That's it.
Very
That's
expensive.
it.
But we have a lot to study with you if you help us out, and we're going to do our best to pray for you, to help you out, and we all help each other get to the kingdom.
Likewise, Father.
Viva Cristo Rey!
Viva Cristo Rey! Give us a song we know some words to.
Come now, people, gather round and listen to the words I've written down about the fight that we're now in. We must win. We must win. We must win. The enemy is all about guerrilla tactics, arm his clown, but our leader is the bearded one, is equals to Master None. Master None. The others, an eclectic crew, commenced the fight, we follow through, against the angel of the dark, Peter, Paul, Matt and Mark, Andrew, who marched on with a smile, to welcome martyrdom in style, bloodshed, for the bearded one is equals to Master None. Master None. So as this well-benighted line met with the fate required by time and tenacious efforts by the foe, whose deadly fire we all know they gave way, but the gaps were filled, the flag was passed to men instilled with power from the bearded one is equals to Master None. Master None. Then our fathers took the fight for all that's good, for all that's right, entrenched the line for all to see, snuffed out the traitors' villainy, Apologia the sword held stock, with old Ignatius of Antioch, Irenaeus, Justin, martyr too, exhausted now, the foe withdrew. He withdrew. Athanasius killed a renewed surge, with valiant effort he did purge the evil soldiers of the dark, whose comrades killed old Polycarp. Polycarp. Ambrose, Augustine, Hilary swelled the ranks of our army, as Leo the Great and Cyprian, Clement the Alexandrian, 3 men from Cappadocia came, bound for everlasting fame, fighting for the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. But then our line was blown apart, barbaric charge pierced to the heart, with hopes of victory now dim. Benedict walked in, he walked in. Soon came the Irishmen in tow, who dealt the amphibious blow. Ora labora was the rule that destroyed the psalmist's fool. Amidst the forests on the hills, behind the walls the battle skills, imparted by the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. Dominic and Bernard of Clairvaux, Francis and Rags despite the snow, Thomas slashed his mighty pen, destroyed the schemes of bitter men. Thus there arose great peace and pride, despite the crescent moon outside. All praise for the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. Suddenly a catastrophic blow, an ambush set up by our foe, caught our tattered army by surprise, tore us apart before our eyes, set up a mockery of good upon the lands that had withstood so many challenges before. Peril was great. Would we lose the war? Forward marched a wayward man from Loyola with his band. They formed a steadfast new brigade, rallied the men when they displayed wisdom and courage on the field, shunning wounds that never healed. Wielding swords for the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. Then came the great council of war, rearmed the warriors of our code. Borromeo thrashed out with a roar, with a vigor rarely seen before. Francis de Sales and pious fight pushed the cold, ferocious drive with the fiercest fighter of their time, Robert Bellarmine, Bellarmine. Deary Canisius on the flanks, fear pierced the enemy ranks. They fled from the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. And so on the battle raged, although extended was the stage. Recruits arrived from everywhere, bloodied souls from far and near. Bosco, Vianney, and Alphonse, pious then came in response to orders from the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. But soon complacency arose, the army faltered, then it froze. The goal disappeared from view, many volunteers did too. And as our line was growing thin, the leadership was giving in. Rose above the battles did, a voice cried, we must win, we must win, we must win. Marcel Lefebvre made the claim, martyr's blood coursed through his veins. He would not stand idly by and watch his holy mother die. Instead he took the sword in hand, started roaring forth commands, inspired by the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None. Marcel Lefebvre made the claim, martyr's blood coursed through his veins. He would not stand idly by and watch his holy mother die. Instead he took the sword in hand, started roaring forth commands, inspired by the bearded one is equals to Master None, Master None, Master None. unfold my plan. He brought with him the word of God to end the pagan reign. Success was his achievement, but no land was his reward. For he said, right these wayward souls for Jesus, Christ our Lord. Black robe, where had he gone? Black robe, he now. Black robe, please come on back. Black robe, somehow. And the savage who failed to understand the words the black robe spoke brought him death and pain and agony, but his will never broke. For it was his solemn duty to serve our Master Lord, to ignore the obstacles of strife and discord. And the missions that were sent from God sprung up across the land. Thousands of forlorn souls received a second chance to accept Almighty God, to reject the devil's wile, to reap the eternal, the reward of Jesus' trial. Black robe, where had he gone? Black robe, we need you now. Black robe, please come on back. Black robe, somehow. The missions, they've gone away. The Spirit now is gone. Oftentimes I wonder, can I carry on? For the savage regained the fall. He's back now in control. And the world he's created and is his soul. Reality and nature no longer now extend upon the truths of Mother Church, and no longer think. But do so, don't bring a cash. But do so, you're a fool. Man's new Messiah bound out to his rule. So paganism's back again, led by the savage beast. Material idolaters back before their feast. Hello, my name's America. I've been around a while. Things have come full circle. Your past is back in style. A solution to my problems, the same as it was then. Black robe, please come on back. Save me.